Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am the Takunome, and welcome to my humble slices of the internet that are my Twitch and YouTube channels. How is everyone doing today? It has been quite a while since we've done the reading stream, and I will get into why that is the case. I will say actually, this whole month has been a whole ordeal. But we will get into that in a minute. Because first, erudite, hello, as they wrote first. Happy to see you. Hope you're having a good day today. I think my microphone's a little too loud here. Let's drop that down just a bit so that we are not blowing out earphones. Now, tonight, we are continuing our book, Clockwork Twist, Book 10, Time by Emily Thompson. And for those who do not know who our author is, allow me the opportunity to read their bio to you. Now, Emily Thompson is a non binary author and artist originally from Northern California. Although they adore steampunk and all things Victoriana, they also write science fiction and fantasy. After studying film and animation in university, Emily changed to a Japanese language focused and studied in Tokyo. After receiving a language degree and spending a number of years abroad, they now live in Washington and spend most of their free time writing at coffee shops, painting, crocheting plushies, coding, and playing lots of cozy video games. That is our author for the evening. And be quite honest, a regular author for the reading stream. I enjoy the series, and that is why we are now on book 10 out of 12 of this series. It has been a while since I've done the reading stream, so I'm also remembering exactly what did I do. I know I've made some changes before, but I had to make some changes recently to the reading stream. You may notice there's a little line towards the bottom of our screen here. That is because we now have this. It is still a bit of a work in progress, but now we have a little ticker tape just to say welcome to the stream, reminding you that which book we're reading, as well as where you can purchase this book if you are so inclined. And not just this book, but the entire series, if you will. So far, I have 10 of the 12 books. I intend to get the other two books very shortly, to be quite honest. Now, exactly, I guess this goes into news for the channel, really. What happened the past 2 weeks? Why did we not have a reading stream the last two Sundays? Well, 2 Sundays ago, I went to a local art festival here and also took time to speak with my Japanese professor from university. However, after the art festival, I was absolutely wiped and I knew I would not do the reading stream justice. So I let it go. Last Sunday originally was going to be the reading stream. I thought I mentioned that I switched it around, but maybe I haven't. It has been a rather busy month. However, last Sunday had house meeting, we had community day, and I think I had one other errand to run last Sunday. That was going to be too much for one Sunday, so now we have the reading stream this Sunday because we did not have community day today since that was last Sunday. So tonight we are back to the reading stream. Nice, that ticker is way less stress inducing than the ones on the news. I agree. I agree. I wish the font was a little clearer. I'm not a fan of the font size. It is something I will probably try to work on later or let it be. Honestly, I believe it is still legible compared to what it was earlier today as I was testing things out. News for this stream, or these channels, I should say. Next month, actually, the next 2 months, I am not too sure what the schedules for the reading stream will be. We will have them, and I will aim for hopefully 3 out of 4 Sundays each month. That's the goal. However, I will be traveling next month, hopefully just to one location and not to two. We will see, depending on work. And in August, I will be traveling again. Actually, I think every month starting tomorrow, September, until January, I will have travel plans. However, the reading stream may or may not be affected by those travel plans. When we have more information on that, I will be sure to let you know as soon as possible, whether that is through the Discord or through Blue Sky. One other thing I want to bring up. This is not necessarily news for the channel, but this is news I want to spread around. So, a few weeks back, a good friend of mine, a good Twitch friend of mine, I should say, his dog went through a really rough time. And they had to take the dog to the veterinarians and get him treated and basically saved his life. The dog, Ozzy, the dog's name is Ozzy. The dog is doing well. He is learning, he's rehabilitating. That's the word I'm looking for. He's going through rehabilitation right now, learning how to basically walk again and to live the best pupper life he can. However, to go through all this is not cheap. And that is why I asked him if they had a GoFundMe to see if we could crowd raise some money to help them pay for Ozzy's treatment. And there is one. There we go. For example, if you type in exclamation point donate, it will show you the link and ways you could donate to this fund if you so have the means to do so. Of course, I am not asking people to put in a set amount of money. I'm only asking if you're able to donate or share with others. We would be very appreciative if you could get the word out, and let's help Ozzy have a smoother transition to being, well, a happy puppy. I believe that is all for updates. I believe so, anyway. So, with that, we are going to go to from a Erudite, that face, Ozzy is such a good boy. Honestly, he is. Very good boy. A good, brave boy at that. Because that had to be scary from what my friend told me that Ozzy went through. It was not pleasant, but he persevered. Let's see here. Oh, actually, there is a little bit of news as to why we have a slightly remodified design, and honestly, another reason why I was not able to do the reading stream last Sunday. Not last Thursday, the Thursday before. So, 2 Thursdays ago, while testing something with another streaming friend for our randomizer day, my computer decided to die on me. And it chose the most dramatic fashion to do this. Not only did it decide to freeze on me, I thought, okay, I cannot safely recover from this situation. So I had to force turn off my computer, which I do not enjoy. The computer turned back on, but it could not read the hard disk. I took out the hard disk, tried it with a different computer, have a disk reader, and it did not work. Eventually, I found out that there was a mechanical failure, which I was able to repair because I happened to have some of the tools to do so, and then it seemed to work, and then it failed catastrophically. So I have tried everything in my knowledge and power and tool set to at least get the information off the hard drive. And to this point, I have not been able to. So I may have to send it to a specialist to get any information off. As a result, however, everything that was on that computer is essentially lost. I was fortunate that none of my writings was on that hard drive. I was fortunate that a lot of my games were backed up or actually on a different hard drive on the computer, so they were not affected. And I was fortunate that for some of the games that were lost, I could easily replace them. I could easily build them back. However, a lot of my streaming assets, so these could be sound alerts, images, graphics, things like that, those were lost. And those were hours and hours upon work that I'm not sure if I'm going to get back. Fortunately, we were able to get our background again. And retrieving an image for the photo was trivially simple. But that is one of the reasons why, another reason why we could not stream last Sunday, because the reading stream was down. But now we're back up, and hopefully better than ever. Glad your writing is safe. That's so awful. I will say that is one of the few times I will say, I'm glad Google Drive had my documents. It's a rare occasion. So, with that, we are going to get ready to go into our reading. As a result of me losing all of those assets that I had on my other computer, that also meant the recap that I had for this story is also gone. We had to make a new one, actually, about an hour ago. We had to make a new one. And so, with that, I'll give you a quick recap of the story in the book so far. For most of his life, Twist has been alone. Orphaned as a baby, he would eventually repair clocks in a quiet, cozy shop in London. Thanks to his sight, his supernatural ability, he could repair just about anything simply by touching it to find what is broken. Unfortunately, this worked with people, thus making it virtually impossible for him to make physical contact with others. His life changed when a young woman requested his help to mend the mythical Clockwork Princess. Since then, since he has set off on his adventure, he has discovered new worlds and made powerful friends and allies along the way. With his sky pirate friend Jonas and wonderful clockwork fiancée Mira by his side, the world is a little easier to manage. However, it is not all fun and games. Dangerous and ancient forces wish to see his demise and will do anything to make it come true. Through the use of spells and wit, Twist and his friends have managed to avoid their grim fates. Now, he and his companions have almost reached Argentina, where Twist's newly discovered father had built a time machine. If all goes according to plan, Twist may be reunited with his long lost mother, or tragedy may find its way to them. And that is the recap. Let's see, we have our tea ready to go. And I want to apologize ahead of time. My throat may still be recovering from a few nights ago. I went to I would say Japanese inspired game show, which was a lot of fun, but it was very loud and it was very hard to talk to the person next to me. So my throat is still recovering from that, but we will continue to do our best with the voices. So, Clockwork Twist, Book 10, Time by Emily Thompson. We are currently on page 142. Wish me luck with voices and let's begin. You built your time machine in the cathedral? Jonas asked, clearly confused by Miguel's instructions. Jonas stood at the helm, guarding the Icarus over the sprawling city of Buenos Aires, which had appeared out of the surrounding landscape shortly after lunch. A vast, vibrant, and lively city nestled up against a wide inlet off of the Atlantic. The water beyond was filled with sailing ships while airships meandered through the clear blue early afternoon sky. Well, I built my device under the cathedral, yes, Miguel said with a shrug. But you should dock over there at the port. Jonas shook his head, steering the ship away from the massive cathedral's wide, flat face adorned with a series of Grecian columns in the style of the Pantheon. As they flew over this remarkable structure, Twist could only marvel at its curious style. He'd seen many cathedrals and churches in his time back in Europe, but never one that looked so much like a courthouse as this one. If it weren't for the cross standing proud atop the building's central dome, he never would have guessed it to be a place of worship at all. And the priests are fine with you fiddling about with the laws of time in their basement? Jonas asked. Quite reasonably, Twist thought, as the airship continued on toward the harbor, which lay a few short blocks from the cathedral. They have granted me sanctuary, Miguel answered, sounding somewhat offended by Jonas's implications. I told them that evil beings were after me and that I needed a safe place to hide from them. They gave me a job as the groundskeeper and asked nothing about how I spend my time. As for my machine, it's not in the basement. It's very well hidden. Twist looked to his father in confusion. Why did you go to a church for help at all? Do they even believe in fairies? Miguel looked back at him with his own confusion. Fae can't see or hear anything on sacred ground. It has the same effects as a charm. So long as they don't see you enter the area, there is nowhere safer than an established church to hide from the Fae. Really? Jonas asked. Why hasn't Mama or anyone else mentioned that? Miguel gave a quiet sigh. Mama doesn't share my faith. She only believes in the material and not very open to new ideas. I pray for her. Twist glanced to his father as his suspicions grew. But that's not a church. It's a cathedral. You're a Catholic, aren't you? Miguel looked at his son. Yes, he said, as if this should be well known. So are you. I insisted you be baptized as soon as I realized that your life was in danger. With all that was happening, I wasn't about to gamble with the fate of your soul. Twist's eyes widened in fright. Why did you have to make me Catholic? He protested pitifully. I never got any say in this. How dare you? Miguel stared back at him, alarmed. Jonas chuckled. Twist, relax. You're still the most British man in the world, even if you're Catholic. I'd be more British if I were Buddhist, Twist grumbled, crossing his arms and scowling. See? Jonas asked cheerfully. Only a truly, deeply British bastard would have any problem at all with the fact that you're going to go to the wrong heaven. Twist held his scowl, even if Jonas's logic was somewhat comforting. What's wrong with being Catholic? Miguel asked, looking just as lost as he sounded. You do believe in God, don't you, son? Twist shrugged. Why not? My fiancé is a fairy tale. I've met dragons, jinns, fox spirits, witches, and a monkey who talks better than I do. It's starting to feel foolish to disbelieve in anything at this point in my life. Then why are you upset? Miguel asked. Twist looked at his father's earnest concern and lost the will to answer. Somehow the thought that religion clearly mattered to his father made his own complaints, that Catholicism was known to be anti-British, seem insufferably petty and intolerant. You're giving your son an identity crisis, Jonas answered for Twist. Twist glared at him. Which, of course, is just silly. Twist, no one in this world could even accuse you of being anything but a proud, stuffy English dandy, no matter what your lineage may be. Twist found himself smiling and fought hard to stop. I see, Miguel murmured, looking troubled. So, if sacred ground can fend off the Fae, Jonas began, then why didn't you just hole up in a church back in Europe? Why come all the way here to South America? The barrier to fairy is thinnest around those who know and speak of the Fae, Miguel answered with a sigh. The ancient, the ancient Greeks were the first to learn of them, and that knowledge was carried out into Europe and England. South America is not only as physically far removed from Europe as possible, but it also heavily controlled by men of my faith. Besides, even if the Fae couldn't send a sitter or a goblin to murder us on sacred ground, they could hire a dragon or a djinn or any gold hungry human to do the job just fine. They were so close on the hills that we couldn't hide anywhere in Europe. Twist struggled to imagine his father, the steadfast, resourceful, and brilliant man before him now, as a frightened man cowering in the shadows of a churchyard. Honestly, he was the son of one of the greatest clockmakers to have ever come out of Spain, and that was not even mentioning his obvious skills with science, mathematics, and his own clockwork art. But why a groundskeeper? Twist asked, still unable to imagine his father in such a humble profession. Your skills are with clockwork, not gardening. There's nothing wrong with simple work, he answered. The work is easy as well. It gives me plenty of time to think through my designs so that I can implement them later. It's a small price to pay for peace. Twist shook his head, finally coming to understand. He was sure that no one who seen the lowly groundskeeper would have ever imagined the mysteries he pondered while sweeping up dust or tending to flowers. Twist glanced back to his father. once again amazed by the man's unwavering determination. It seemed there was nothing at all that he wouldn't do to bring his wife back from death. Thinking reflexively of Mira, Twist found that he could easily identify with such devotion. There was something that he and his father shared. Twist brought the airship in to dock above harbor, along the long iron jetties that reached up to the other docked airships. Twist brought the ship's engines to rest, patting gently at a control and murmuring that he wouldn't make them sleep for too long. Kima was tying off the mooring rope when Twist, Jonas, and Miguel returned to the deck. Mira stood on the deck as well, parasol in hand, eager to step out into the city, while Pamut, Robin both peered out over the side of the deck at the new country below. Having easily seen their arrival, a man in a very smart blue suit and matching cap walked swiftly along the multi-level airship dock, approaching the Icarus. He stopped outside the open door into the airship's glass-enclosed deck and offered a short bow, tipping his cap, and then produced a long string of language that Twist suspected might be Spanish. Miguel responded instantly in kind, but just as unintelligibly to Twist. The man nodded, scribbling on a notepad in his hand. When he spoke again, the words sounded like a question, and this time Jonas spoke up in the same language. Startled, Twist could only stare at his friend in amazement, but the smartly dressed man didn't seem at all perturbed. Instead, he made a polite-sounding declaration. Mira gave a bright and bubbly sound, opening her purse and hurrying to hand the man a coin. The porter seemed somewhat surprised by the sight of her clockwork face, but took the coin nonetheless and handed her a receipt. He then tipped his hat once again and spoke a bit more before he turned and strode away. Mira offered one last word and waved to him, turning back to the others happily. Miguel, his expression curious now, spoke on in Spanish while glancing to Mira and Jonas. Mira seemed surprised, her fingers moving swiftly to her lips as if she misspoken, but Jonas gave a casual shrug and said something else. Excuse me, Robin said, suddenly lifting a hand. I don't speak Spanish. Can I get some subtitles? I don't speak that language either, Kima added. I can only learn one new language at a time. Oh, come now, Jonas said. Your English is perfectly serviceable these days. Why not learn another language? It's good exercise for the mind. Kima paused in thought, possibly thinking over the idea. Is everything all right then? Twist asked. What did that man want? He was asking questions for the harbor master, Jonas answered easily. He wanted to know the name of the ship, the captain, our business in Argentina, and he took the docking fee as well. What did you tell him our business was? Twist asked, frowning. Certainly you didn't tell him the truth. It wasn't that long of a conversation. No, Jonas said, chuckling. Miguel said we were all here on holiday. Ah, Twist said, nodding. He caught his father now, staring at him thoughtfully. You really don't speak Spanish at all? He asked Twist. Heavens, no, Twist said, shaking his head. Twist is so British, Jonas offered pleasantly as explanation. That, like the rest of his countrymen, he expects everyone else to learn his language, but never bothers to learn anyone else's. Must be nice to own the world. Twist shot Jonas a sour look. You're the one with the British bloodline, you know. No, I'm a pirate, Jonas said with a dastardly smirk. I'm not British. I'm a citizen of the world, and as evidence of that, I speak more than just English. Well, you sound British to me, bub, Robin remarked, his American accent ringing loud and clear on his words. Twist, happy for any vindication, smiled at the time traveler. Can anyone be a pirate? Pamut asked Jonas with obvious wonder and curiosity. Kima looked to her son as if slightly worried by his interest. Everyone else fell silent as well, but Jonas looked proudly at the boy and said, Only the bravest and most capable men can become pirates. But once you are, the title can be yours for life. Twist gave a quiet sigh, feeling true delight bubble up in the buzzing at his neck, while Jonas made his declaration. Yes, and you can be hung for it because it's a crime, Kima added pointedly at Jonas. Pubmut gasped, looking to her. Jonas waved at her dismissively. Only careless pirates get caught. The best of us live on in infamy, at the very least. Infamy? Pumut asked curiously. You know, famous for being dastardly, Jonas answered with a dastardly grin. Are you famous? Pumut asked Jonas, his young face sparkling with wonder again. While Kima seemed even more disturbed by this conversation, Jonas's eyes turned bright blue. I'm getting there, he answered with a smug and a casual shrug. Pumut clearly found this answer inspiring, while Kima gave a noisy, annoyed huff and looked to Miguel. So, she said loudly, does anyone else in the city speak English, or will the rest of us need you to interpret? Well, Miguel said, while Jonas gave Kima an unhappy look for her diversion. There are a lot of immigrants in Buenos Aires, and some people do speak English, but many don't. Those of you who don't speak Spanish shouldn't wander off too far alone. I'm just here to see your time machine, Robin offered with a shrug. I kind of like to get home, you know? Yes, Miguel said, as if only just remembering his promise to Robin. Of course. Let's go then. I need to attend to my device anyway. Miguel led the way out of the ship and along the jetty down to the ground, and Mira took Twist's arm as they and the others followed him down to the streets. Here we're going to take a chapter break. I will admit, during the reading of that chapter, I panicked a little bit. I forgot if I had closed captioning set for the reading stream. But I'm looking at my OBS streaming platform device. What do you call this? OBS. I would say broadcasting, but OBS broadcast is in OBS. Either way, I took a look at OBS and I see that I do have closed caption on. In fact, I am reading almost every word I am saying right now. Ooh, that is still very hot. However, I do want to thank you all for joining this reading stream, whether you're here live on Twitch or YouTube, or you are listening to the VOD. I do hope that you are enjoying the story so far, as well as the reading of this story. Oh my. Let's see. I do need to take a drink of something before we continue. I wanted to drink the tea, but the tea is still too hot for me. Ashley. There we go. But with that, we are going to go into our next chapter. And from a Erudite, I've forgotten most of Jonas's quips, so I'm having lots of fun. Oh, that's good. Jonas has... Jonas is one of those characters I enjoy reading. One, his voice is very similar to my own natural voice. I just basically use my own voice for him. And the way how he, well, delivers quips and whatnot, it just seems like a lot of fun. Ooh, thinking about Mira's voice now. I'm hoping I could pull off her voice tonight, but we are going into our next chapter, so with that, let's begin. The busy streets of Buenos Aires bustled all about Twist and his companions as they were swept along into the fray, making Twist dearly wish they had taken a cab despite the shortness of their journey. Men and women called to each other above the din, speaking not a word that Twist could follow, while carriages, carts, and cabs bolted down the wide streets with alarming speed and determination. Children ran about, both alone as delivery boys and pickpockets, and with families that struggle to keep them close, with little regard for the massive crowds around them. After so long in the serenity at the top of the sky, Twist found his nerves now tight as piano wire in this huge and heavily populated city. Muir walked before him, holding tightly to his hand, while Jonas remained forever at his heels, the two of them yet again acting as a shield for him. Twist was grateful for their care, but the frequent shifts in the direction and speed of the crowds around them made him fear that it wasn't going to be enough. More than once along the few short blocks, a stray elbow or hand swept dangerously close to striking him unintentionally, and each time Twist's heart shuddered in his chest. He was only vaguely aware that the rest of his crew was following with him, while his father kept up a steady and swift pace, leading them deeper into the noise and chaos. Twist tried to look up at the state of the city around him, but the bodies all around stole his attention. Many of the faces he saw had the paleness of Europeans, but still he heard no English at all. Some were dressed in obvious workwear, while others appeared far too funnily dressed to be subjecting themselves to this din. The warmth of the day also made him feel strangely claustrophobic, even though the streets they walked on were wide. How much further is it? Jonas called to Miguel up ahead. Mira glanced back at him as Miguel paused to answer, her face washing over with worry when her eyes found Twist. He felt her worry for him build, and Twist began to string together a calming comment when a cart or carriage careened by them suddenly, the driver shouting at the crowd while the horses cried out as well. A young woman who had been walking by leaped away from the dangerous motion, her shoulder slamming directly into Twist's. In an instant, all of the noise and movement on the street vanished into silence, darkness, and cold. Confused, Twist looked around himself and found he was suddenly inside a dark house. There was only a single candle burning in the room, and it lay on the floor. He could see the wax dripping from the fallen candle onto the exposed wood at the foot of the staircase, beside a mask that lay crumpled beside it. It only took an instant for Twist to recognize the face. His eyes open but empty of all life, the skin already sunken and pale, but the sleeping gown and braided hair still pretty and unspoiled, as that of a young girl. The horror and shock of it was lost in confusion and disbelief. The image was wrong, too wrong to be true. Just an hour ago, she said good night and given him a kiss. She couldn't be gone. She was only 9 years old. It was impossible. As his chest filled with unbearable pain at the wretched understanding, he felt a scream of anguish and horror bellow out of him on the voice of a young woman. Suddenly the world filled with billowing white fog, as cold as a cloud and as bright as sunlight. His heart still rent from the sudden death of his dear little sister. Twist tumbled helplessly into the fog, embracing whatever might come so long as he no longer have to know that she was gone. Twist! Jonas's voice called from everywhere at once. Damn it, come back! With a sudden snap, Twist's mind found its way back to sanity. Dizzy and confused, still tumbling weightless in the fog, Twist struggled to cling to the voice. Almost as if responding to his desperation, the buzzing sensation in his neck appeared clearer in his mind. He reached out, focusing every ounce of his attention, and hung on to it with everything he had. Slowly the tumbling stopped. He began to realize that he wasn't weightless at all, but sitting on a hard surface wrapped in a familiar warmth. There, Jonah's voice said, speaking more softly now. Come on, you're all right. After a few false starts, Twist finally figured out how to open his eyes again. Sunlight splashed down on him, stinging at his eyes, and his arm rose instinctively to block the light. Another softer shadow fell over him. A warm hand gently took his chin, turning his face up and to the left. Twist opened his eyes again to find Jonas peering at him with eyes so deeply purple that they looked black. The weight of his gaze felt reassuring and supportive, and Twist struggled to hold it. For some reason, it was very difficult to do so. Jonas? Mira's voice asked from very close by, wavering on terror. Hold on, Jonas replied. not looking away from Twist. Twist heard a hint of relief on his voice and found it very reassuring as well. He has to put himself back together. He's almost done. He'll be alright. Twist suddenly realized that there was a lot of noise all around them. People were shouting, talking, laughing, and moving swiftly by on all sides. Were they still on the street in Buenos Aires? Of course. Twist had no little sister. He never seen the dark house in his vision. That hadn't been his memory at all. Even with this knowledge, he still felt the impossible weight of the loss in his own heart. She'd been so beautiful. How could a life as bright and endless as hers been snuffed out as easily as a candle? No, no, Jonas said, frowning slightly. That's the wrong way, Twist. Come back to me. Everything is all right. Twist did his best to do as he was told. Whatever Jonas's sight was showing him in Twist's eyes was clearly enough to to help him to guide Twist back to the real world. Twist leveled all of his will and attention on the buzzing and on the comforting weight against his sight. He blinked to get his attention back to himself, found his hands and clasped them together, feeling the skin rub gently. His body felt distant and numb to him, as if it wasn't the one he left. Seeming to understand this, Jonas's hand moved slightly down, away from the back of Twist's neck. Twist's mind cleared instantly. He found himself suddenly back in his own skin. The cold white fog in his mind receded to the edges of his thoughts, leaving him with a clear space in which to work. The color in Jonas's eyes lightened to lavender, but he still didn't look away from Twist. Once again, Mira murmured his name, and Jonas only shook his head. Almost, he said as an answer. Twist reached up to rub at his face and found it wet. Had he been crying? Why wouldn't he, having suffered such pain? He forced his thoughts away, once again, and looked around him. Mira knelt close beside he and Jonas, while Jonas held him sitting up on the street. Mira's pretty pink parasol hung above him, shielding him from the sunlight. Twist found Kima, Pumut, Robin, and Miguel all standing around him as well, staring down at him in confusion and concern. A sudden flash of embarrassment was all it took to shove Twist solidly back to reality. I'm sorry, he muttered, looking away from them all. His voice sounded choked and dry. Jonas? Mira breathed once again, her voice pleading now. I think so, Jonas said, nodding with a silent sigh. Twist, can I let go now? Twist considered this. More than anything, he wanted everything to return to normal, as if the vision had never hit him. The idea of moving on sounded enticing. He nodded. Jonas moved away, letting Twist sit up on his own, and took his hands away. The fog slipped away with him, leaving Twist's mind jagged and treacherous at the edges. Mira moved in swiftly, embracing Twist as he remained sitting on the street, her worry splashing hot over his sight. Oh, my poor dear, she murmured very softly. I'm so sorry. I didn't see her until it was too late. No, no, you did nothing wrong, Twist said quickly. We should get off the street, Jonas said. We're nearly there, Miguel said, pointing off down the street. Ready to move, Twist? Jonas asked, looking to him. Twist was infinitely grateful to find no pity in the other man's purple eyes. Jonas's expression was grim and promised that he was in no mood to waste time, but he didn't appear at all disappointed in Twist for losing himself. Twist nodded to him and moved to rise. Jonas and Mira instantly offered help, getting him swiftly back to his feet and on the move. Here we're going to take a chapter break. Oh, looks like we have. I'm assuming this is a new person to the reading stream. It has been a while. If you're not new, it's been a very long time since I've seen your name. But Cloud Ox 666. I'm assuming this is a ox born of water vapor from hell. Hello, welcome to the reading stream. I see, I'm assuming that's Hola Chica. Now, seeing that I'm a guy, I don't think Chica quite works for me, but hello and welcome. Hope that you, along with everyone else, are enjoying the reading stream as well as, well, the story as well. Before we continue, I do want to thank you all for joining this reading stream. I am very appreciative of the support that you give this channel on Twitch or YouTube. Mm. Tea is not so hot anymore. That's great. And as always, when it comes to supporting this channel, I do appreciate everyone who takes the time to just tune in to listen, lurk, or share with family, friends, subscriptions, follows, likes, so on and so forth. As I said before, I do this for a hobby, not for a job, and I am always touched that there are people who want this reading stream and do enjoy it. So thank you all very much. Mm. Tonight, I am drinking a stream favorite here, the Clockmaker, inspired by the series that we are reading right now on stream. The ingredients for the Clockmaker tea are roasted green tea, orange peel, black tea, pure tea, rose petal, and pine smoke. You know, I'm never quite sure if I'm pronouncing this word correctly. I will type it to chat here. I am never sure if I'm pronouncing this word correctly, and I never take the time to actually, well, look it up. But I think it's pure. We'll go with that for now. Nevertheless, this tea is one of my top 3 teas. And now that I'm looking at the packaging, I think one of the cats tried to bite into the packaging. I see little unnatural puncture mark attempts. I'm going to say probably my cat Momo. I would imagine Momo was the one to do this. Nevertheless, it is really good tea, it is still fresh, and I definitely enjoy it. I don't know how to say it either. It is a word I should probably learn how to say so we can say it properly on the stream. Hmm. Oh, that's good tea. And where can you find such good tea? Well, it's been a few weeks since we had to do this. And I believe, well, we all know where this is going to go. If you're new to the reading stream, well, you're in for a treat because allow me the opportunity to tell you about a cozy little tea shop in the quiet rains of Seattle, Washington, called Friday Afternoon. That's right, it is time to talk about Friday Afternoon, the tea shop in Seattle, Washington. If you go to their website, www.fridaytea.com, you will find a wide variety of teas that I know will tickle your fancies, like the Clockmaker, if you will, or another one of my personal favorites, Anansi Web. Now, why do I mention Anansi's Web? Well, starting tomorrow, September 1st, the Fall Fandom Collection will be available for order, and Anansi's Web is also part of that Fall Fandom Collection. But we're not going to talk about Anansi's Web, no, no. We're going to talk about a different tea instead. This tea, oh, excuse me, had a burp there. This tea is called Underworld. So, CloudHawk666, you might like this tea, since there's some commonality here, but I digress. Underworld. It is part of the Mythology collection, and the description goes as thus. This dark, dank, lush blend of earthy sweet decadence is a walk on the underside in a cup. We took inspiration from ancient Greek mythology and crafted a tea to take you on a journey below. Cave aged pure tea melds with shaved dark chocolate and black cherry flavor to form a bed of velvet darkness. Dried chicory root and bright pops of pomegranate light your way. The tea will brew first dark, and then darker still in the second and third infusion. Lightness returns to the cup after the third or fourth infusion, and the lighter flavors grow to guide you from winter to spring flavors. Ingredients: pure tea, black tea, pomegranate, dark chocolate, there's an asterisk after that, chicory root, natural black cherry flavoring. Now, for this dark chocolate with the asterisk, it says cannot read. Dark chocolate contains cocoa beans, cane sugar, cocoa butter, ground vanilla bean. I like vanilla. And there's a little bit more to this as well about the inspiration for this tea. Fireside Folk Tales is a feed dedicated to showcasing the talent of queer folk from all around the world, focusing on adaptations of myths and legends. Each season is a new story, adapted, written, and performed by marginalized people. We have some reviews as well. Oh my, we actually have a ton of reviews. We have 11 reviews, but we're going to read 3 of them. So it is 10 people gave it 5 stars. One person gave it not 1 star. One person gave it 4 stars. But let's go through some reviews. The 5-star review from June 24th of this year, 2025, says, "Perfect. I'm already a huge fan of love and murder, so dark, somewhat earthy teas are right up my alley. This tea starts off dark and earthy, and little pops of tartness pop through. It literally says that, and little pops of tartness pop through as you enjoy the brew. Phenomenal." Another 5-star review, May 11th of 2025. "Delicious, delicious, delicious. This has become one of my favorite all-time teas. Absolutely amazing taste." And from April 17th of 2025, another 5 stars. "Yum. Probably the fave of the bunch I bought. Smells crazy, positive, and tastes surprisingly mellow. Looking forward to buying more." And that is 3 out of 11 very positive reviews. There is one review on this page that is basically taking up the entire page when you scroll to focus on it. I think this person likes to write essays, but he too gave it 5 stars from 4/20/2025. Nice. So there you have it, the Underworld Tea. Now, I'm not much of a chocolate person, so this is not my cup of tea, but if you like chocolate, pomegranate, and, well, delicious tea, consider giving it a try. And again, this is the Underworld Tea that you can find at Friday Afternoon, the tea shop in Seattle, Washington. And their website is www.fridaytea.com. Again, www.friday, like the day, and tea, like the drink.com. And no, they do not pay me. They do not coerce me to do this. They have not threatened to break my kneecaps if I said their teas are disgusting or don't say that they're delicious. No, no, no. I enjoy their teas. And speaking of enjoying their teas, from Erudite, I got one more day to finally order the Fairy Queen. Oh, that's a good one. That is the criminally delicious tea, in my opinion. Mm. When I think of teas that are not sweetened for that sweet, delicious taste, the Fairy Queen, again, criminally delicious. little stretch here. I think my sparkle friend made it back home. That's good. You make it sound so yummy. The Fairy Queen, I mean, surprise is one of my top three teas. And, well, let's see. For me, it's the Fairy Queen, Anansi's Web, and Clockmaker tea. And no, I did not choose Clockmaker tea because I'm reading the series. The Clockmaker, actually, Erudite, you're the one who introduced me to the Clockmaker tea. And honestly, I thought I was not going to like it that much. And then it turned out, no, it is it is a surefire safe bet as far as delicious teas go. It's not too crazy. It doesn't feel too out there, if you will. It feels like a normal tea, but at the same time, it has a distinct taste from your run of the mill tea that you might get from, let's say, like a fast food place or something like that. It doesn't feel. How can I best describe the Clockmaker tea? It feels as if, you know what? This feels like the cup of tea that you'll drink on a dark, stormy day, probably reading a book, and everything in life is actually going a-okay. It's terrible outside. You don't want to go outside in that wind and rain. But inside, where it's nice and warm and cozy, that's what that tea makes me think of. The Clockmaker tea, which is appropriate considering the main character Twist had a clock shop in very rainy London. Hmm. See, that ad read is working. It is. And again, they don't sponsor me. I don't know if they know I still do this or not. I say this like every time. They have not reached out and said, we really enjoy you reading or mentioning our teas every reading stream that you do. Keep it up, and here's a little something on the side. Buy yourself something nice. No, they don't do that. But I just enjoy their teas. Before we go on to the next chapter, again, I want to thank you all for joining this reading stream, whether you're here live on Twitch or YouTube, or you're listening to the VOD some other day. I hope that you are enjoying the reading stream as well as the reading of this story. Excuse me for a moment. I think we're okay there. All right, and with that, let us return to our story. Are you all right now, son? Miguel asked as Twist sat down on a wooden pew in the cool quiet under the vaulted ceiling of the cathedral. Twist looked around him in amazement at the surprising beauty of the place. The ceiling hung high above on a forest of strong stone pillars, while the far wall seemed distant and bathed in the colorful light that filtered into the cavernous space through the stained glass. Gas lamps mounted high on the pillars lit the white and gold ceiling more than they did the rows of pew that sat before the enormous altar under the dome further ahead, giving the ceiling a truly heavenly appearance. While the streets outside had been noisy and chaotic, this new space was serene, cool, and reverent. Having nearly forgotten that his father had asked a question at all, Twist snapped his attention back to the man standing at the end of his pew. Yes, thank you, he muttered, struggling to retain a bit of dignity after his episode on the street. I feel much better now. What happened to you? Robin asked, standing beside Miguel. Pamut now knelt on the pew before Twist, facing back to look at him, while Mira sat at his left side and Jonas remained close on his right. Here, is this all right? Kima asked, returning with a small glass of water. Thanks, Jonas said, taking it and offering it to Twist. Here, he said, clearly not going to accept refusal. Twist took the glass and forced down a sip, just to please him. Does the gentleman need a doctor? Asked a man in the black habit who had followed Kima back to them. Twist was surprised to find only a slight accent on his voice, along with a politely concerned expression on his pale face. No, thank you, Jonas answered. He'll be all right. He just needs a moment to rest. Oh, well, the man in the habit said with a smile. You're welcome to stay here and rest for as long as you wish. He then turned to Miguel and spoke to him in Spanish. While Miguel responded in kind, Twist took a moment to close his eyes and rest his head in his hand. The instant he closed his eyes, the little girl's pale and frightened, lifeless face appeared before him. Twist jerked against the image, opening his eyes again. Mira gave a cooing tone and reached up to pet gently at his hair. Her concern warmed over his sight, and her cool fingertips felt soothing, so Twist did nothing to stop her. So really, buddy, Robin said once the man in the black habit had walked away again. What the hell just happened to you? It doesn't matter, Jonas answered, his tone suddenly stern. Stop asking. Kimo looked to Jonas in surprise, while Robin balked at him. Geez, Mac, Robin said, raised his hands. Excuse the hell out of me. Are you sick? Miguel asked Twist gently. Twist looked up to him, confused. But then, of course, the man wouldn't instantly understand. Twist had lived with this sight for his entire life, while his father had never even known what it did to him until recently. Even if his father's ignorance was perfectly innocent, and his concern was obviously apparent, Twist couldn't bring himself to explain. That woman touched him, Mira said softly, her finger still petting gently at Twist's neck. He's had a bad vision, one of her memories. Jonas stared at Mira intently, as if worried she might say too much, but he didn't seem to find anything objectionable in her explanation just yet. Twist was slightly impressed by how gently she touched on the wretched point without actually spelling it out. Miguel thought for a moment, and then his face washed over with dread. Your sight is that strong. She only touched you for an instant. It was an accident. As pity appeared now in his father's eyes, Twist's pride buckled, and his entire spirit screamed at him to flee. Jonas shot to his feet. Don't you have a time machine buried somewhere around here? He asked, his voice tight. Isn't that why we're here? Miguel frowned at Jonas, obviously confused by this sudden change of subject. Yes, I would like to see it, Kima mentioned before anyone could protest. Where is it? She asked, glancing around as if expecting to find it nestled somewhere inside the cathedral. The way into the cavern is outside, Miguel answered, still somewhat confused. But should we wait a moment? Where outside? Jonas asked, his tone filled with false curiosity. Miguel glanced back to Twist. Did you hide it? Kima asked Miguel. I don't think you just want anyone to be able to find it. Yes, that would be awkward, Jonas agreed. He said it's under the church. Oh? Kima asked before Miguel could answer. That's very smart. It's outside in the garden, Miguel said on a sigh, gesturing deeper into the cathedral. Come on, Twist, Jonas said as if casually. Let's go see the time machine. Yes, darling, let's go, Mira added, rising and taking his hand. Twist did his very best not to grin, watching not just Mira and Jonas but Kima as well, all working so valiantly to defend his pride and honor. Robin and Miguel had no choice but to drop their own question, while Miguel began to lead them off. Twist caught a sight of the subtle smile on Kima's face as he stood and walked past her, but she looked away from him after the merest instant of eye contact, her mood as casual as could be when she took her son's hand to walk with him. Twist forced himself to remain silent, no matter how grateful he felt to her and the others. Walking seemed to help clear Twist's mind, and brighter thoughts found their way in. Miguel nodded politely as another man in a black habit strolled past, and the two spoke the same phrase to each other. He then swiftly led Twist and the others out through a small, unassuming wooden door in an unadorned patch of wall, hidden in the shadow of a pillar. They all stepped out into a neat garden filled with sunlight. Trees rustled gently in the light breeze, spilling shade over colorful flower beds, wide swaths of well-trimmed grass, and fine pebbled paths. A fountain stood in the center of the garden, surrounded by wooden benches and murmuring merrily to itself, while another man in clerical dress strolled along a path, reading a small book. Miguel led them through the garden to where a high hedge wall stood like pure green backdrop. A small gap in the hedge led behind it, where a wall of plain gray brick stood at the very edge of the property. Following his father through the gap, Twist found that the area behind the hedge was clearly not meant to be seen. Large tools, piles of stone-smelling earth, and other various bits of gardening equipment lay haphazardly in the dim gloom between the high brick wall and tall hedge. A small hut stood to one side, filling the breadth of the narrow alley-like space. Miguel stopped before the door and produced a set of keys from his pocket. All right, I just have to ask, Robin said while Miguel flipped through his keys. What did you say to explain us all to that priest? I mean, we gotta look like a strange bunch. I told him, Miguel said, having selected, having selected a key and fit it into the lock on the door, that Tristan is my son, and you're all here in Argentina to visit me. Is it safe to tell them the truth? Jonas asked. They don't wear charms, do they? Having unlocked the door, Miguel paused, one hand on the doorknob and the other still holding the keys. Did you expect me to lie? I would, Jonas answered easily. It's easy enough and adds more protection. These men will not betray us. Jonas glanced at Twist. Your old man is a rather trusting fellow. I'm glad you take after your grandmother, or we'd be in trouble a lot more often. Miguel shut the door, remaining outside with all of them and stood facing Jonas. A ripple of startled tension ran through the buzzing in Twist's neck as he and Jonas both recognized the confrontation in Miguel's posture. I'd be trust these good men of God, Miguel said darkly. But that doesn't mean I'll trust just anyone. I'm starting to have my doubts about you. Twist and Jonas both froze in surprise at this declaration, but Mira responded instantly, smiling sweetly to Miguel. Oh, Papa, don't worry about Jonas, she said with a dismissive wave of her hand at him. He can be a handful sometimes, but he's a good man deep down. Jonas began to speak, clearly in opposition to this, but Mira lifted a finger to silence him and went on, still speaking sweetly. He's only worried for Twist's safety, and the same as you and I. He just has a funny way of showing his love is all. Twist, control your wife, will you? Jonas snapped at him. She's spouting nonsense. I can't control her any more than I can control you, Twist answered softly. Miguel was still looking at Jonas with suspicion, and Jonas's annoyance flashed cold against Twist's anxiety. Twist wanted to join Mira in her defense of his friend, but he wasn't sure how. They weren't actually fighting yet, but the threat was hanging thick in the air. Can you guys go more than an hour without arguing about a trivial poppycock? Robin asked mildly of Twist and Jonas. Kima chuckled into her hand and shook her head in answer to Robin. Jonas glared in Robin's direction, the buzzing at Twist's neck filled with bitter grumbling. Miguel stared hard at Jonas, quietly judging for a moment, before looking back to Mira. You trust this pirate? He asked her. I would only trust... I would trust Jonas not only with my own life, but with Tristan's as well. He never let either of us down, and I don't believe he ever will. The grumbling and the buzz at Twist's neck went out like a candle flame, and Jonas fell silent and still as he looked at Mira in surprise. Well said, darling, Twist offered to Mira. I feel exactly the same, he added, looking at his father's calculating gaze. Mira nodded as well, clearly having no issue with Jonas's worth. Jonas looked somewhat humbled by Mira's praise, which was surprising in itself. Twist nearly spoke up again to further diffuse the tension, but Miguel spoke first. Very well, he said on a sigh, nodding. Perhaps my perception of you is flawed. If this sweet girl and my own son can trust you, then you must be an honorable man. Twist winced, expecting Jonas to rebuff this compliment as an insult, but Jonas remained silent. He nodded slightly, giving Miguel the smallest possible response, his gaze down and away and the buzz at Twist's neck chilly. Twist tried to hide his shock, even if Kima and Pamut were now both staring at Jonas in amazement. Miguel turned, opening the door again and stepping through into the little shed. This way, please, he called over his shoulder. The awkward interchange vanished from Twist's thoughts the instant he remembered why they were all here. If his father's machine worked as intended, Twist would find himself face to face with his mother very shortly. A sudden flash of fear at the thought of Ashley meeting her rooted Twist to the spot. His experience with his father had been rife with challenges on all sides. But what would she think of him? What if she didn't approve of her son having grown into an adventuring clockmaker? A thousand insecurities, some obviously silly even to him, and some apparently quite reasonable, crowded into Twist's mind at a frightening pace. Kima, Robin, Pamut, and Miguel had all vanished into the little hut, and Mira moved to follow them. She paused and looked at Twist questioningly when he failed to follow her. A warm hand fell on his back, the familiar white fog of Jonas's touch following immediately after. What's wrong? Jonas asked softly. It's nothing. There, darling, Mira said soothingly, taking his hand to pet at it. Why, you look frightened. Whatever is the matter? Twist felt her confusion in her touch and knew instantly that neither she nor Jonas could reasonably guess at the cause of his sudden fears. Speaking them, even to those much trusted friends, seemed unreasonable. Twist, just breathe, all right? Jonas said gently. Twist glanced up to meet his once again purple eyes. Your head still a bit scrambled from that touch in the crowd? I'm sorry I made it worse arguing with Miguel, he added with a distant and thin shadow of shame that vanished just as quickly as it had come. Whatever is bothering you now, try to let it go. You're going to be fine. I've seen loads of tiny visions of us. I've seen us together in plenty of future moments, and happy, and in a lot of them. No matter what happens here today, you're going to be fine. Twist stared back at his friend, speechless in the face of such solid hope. Of course, Jonas's future visions, no matter how short or obscure, always came to pass. Twist felt a warm blush of confidence and quiet joy bleed into his sight from Mira's touch, and he glanced to her to find a soft smile on her face. Jonas is right, she said gently. You shouldn't let any black thoughts make you upset, darling. We will all be fine, won't we, Jonas? As far as I can see, Jonas answered. Besides, you got enough faith for all three of us, Puppet, he added, his smile turning into a smirk, but his emotions turning toward gratitude and a buzz that only Twist could feel. Mira looked at him levelly. It's better for everyone if Miguel can have a good opinion of you. Yeah, I know, Jonas droned, sounding disinterested but not fooling Twist, nor Mira, judging by her knowing look. Is something wrong? Kima asked, having emerged from the hut. No, we're fine, Jonas answered. Well, hurry up, Kima said, uncharacteristically excited. You have to see this. I don't understand it at all, but it's amazing. Twist glanced over the little hut skeptically, unable to imagine anything amazing within it, but found his feet ready to comply once again as he moved to follow her along with Mira and Jonas. Okay. Was looking at the time and where we are in the story, and I believe we have time for one more chapter. Mm. delicious. Once again, thank you for joining this reading stream. I hope you are enjoying the story as well as the reading of the story. Before we go to the end of the story, once again, I would like to remind everyone that we are trying to help a streaming friend of mine raise money to help his dog rehabilitate after a rather intense treatment that he had to go through to, well, save his life. If you are able to donate, or if you believe that you can help share the word to let other people know, just to chip in if you can, here is the link to the GoFundMe. I intend to donate again in the near future when I can, but I believe every little bit helps to get Ozzy, well, not just back on his feet, but to live the best happy dog life that he can. Let's see, I'm not sure, but I think the next chapter ends in a cliffhanger. Oh. Well, I had considered ending the stream here, but the next chapter seems doable within 15 minutes or so. So we're going to give it a try. And if it's a cliffhanger, well, it is a cliffhanger. But again, I am appreciative of everybody joining this reading stream, whether you're here live or listening to the VOD. And again, if you can share the reading stream with family, friends, anyone who may say, wow, I enjoy listening to a real human read a book. Well, that's what this stream is, a real human reading a book. Because that is now my pitch for the reading stream, all human, no AI. Unless you could count the closed captioning tool as AI, but no, by strict definition, that's not AI. But with that, we are going into our final chapter of the evening. And you are correct, this is an AI free zone. Now, I don't think our background image is AI generated. I don't think. I may need to review that. It has been the image reviews before AI started taking off and you had things like Mid-Journey or whatnot. But I'm looking at it now, I'm like, is it? I don't think so, but I will look into that later. But for now, let us go into our final chapter for the evening. After another drink. Okay. The interior of the hut was just as unamazing as Twist had suspected, but there was also a trap door in the floor, and a bright golden glow emanating out of it. Kima hurried through the trap door and down the ladder to reach up to the edge of it. Twist held Mira's hand as she followed Kima until she caught her footing, and then he climbed down after her. The ladder led a good 20 feet down below. Apologies, let's start that over. The ladder led a good 20 feet down before reaching the rocky ground. Twist heard Mira gasp in wonder once she reached the bottom and turned around, but he focused his full attention on keeping a tight grip on the ladder until he felt solid ground beneath his feet. While Jonas followed above him, Twist stepped clear and looked around. The cavern was surprisingly immense, with a smooth, wide floor that stretched for a few hundred square feet. The rocky walls stood nearly flat on all sides, and the solid rock ceiling hung above without support, and was nearly covered with glowing gas lanterns. But the true spectacle of the huge cavern was the monstrous machine that filled more than half of it. At first glance, Twist couldn't understand what he was looking at. The machine seemed like a gigantic solid lump of pure golden clockwork, with vents and pipes all over its surface that let off gentle puffs of steam. The face of the thing was relatively flat, but huge exposed gears, massive coiled springs, sturdy supports, and other stranger mechanical elements were set into the face like the uncovered back of an enormous pocket watch. Twist moved closer, trying to make sense of the most striking elements he saw on the machine's face. There seemed to be a long series of large gold and glass, foot-high hourglasses set into the front of the machine. In the very center stood a much larger hourglass, each bell of which could easily contain a full-grown man without asking him to even stoop. At closer inspection, Twist noticed that each of the smaller hourglasses, with one single exception, contained an item rather than any sand. One held what looked like a folded scarf, while another held a shoe, a book, or even a hair clip. The largest central hourglass was empty. Robin gave a whistle, shaking his head. That's one hell of a thing, Mr. Wells. This feels very strange, Pamut said, stepping close to the front of the machine. I can feel dragon magic and fae, but Jinn magic too? He looked worriedly to Miguel. You can't mix magics like this. No spell could hold them all together without exploding. I am not using them in a spell, Miguel replied. This is a machine. I'm only using the magical elements as components. They don't have to work together just simultaneously. Have you ever tried to work this thing? Pamut asked, stepping back now. Many times, Miguel answered. I've used it to collect every single token you see here, he added, pointing to the items in the hourglass. I can assure you it's never exploded. I don't want to be here if you use it again, Pamut muttered, having drawn back closer to his mother. She put her hand on his shoulder, and he seemed to relax slightly. That is fine, Miguel said with a shrug. You don't have to be here when I turn it on again if you don't want to be. I can't even use it again for a few days anyway. I just hope that I have enough time to check over everything before I have to make the final trade, he added with a concerned sounding tone. We bought you a lot of time by getting here fast though, didn't we? Jonas asked. Oh yes, Miguel said, turning to give him a smile. I was afraid I wouldn't have time to do any diagnostics at all. Now I have much more time. He turned to Twist. You and your pretty airship have been a wonderful help. I can't thank you enough. I'm glad we could help, Mira answered. May I? May I touch the machine? Twist asked. With my sight, I should be able to find any damage there might be and tell you exactly where it is. Oh yes, by all means, Miguel said happily. That will be invaluable information to me. Do you want me to explain the design? He asked, already moving to where a table stood against the wall, covered with blueprints and loose papers. No, that's fine, Twist said, making him pause. My sight will explain everything. Darling? Mira asked gently, concern reappearing in her emotions as she held more tightly to his arm. Are you sure you should? You just had a shock. Maybe you should rest a bit more. No, I'm fine, Twist said, putting on his best smile to hide how uncomfortable her worry made him feel. Mira looked to Jonas. Jonas shrugged. When has a machine caused him any trouble? Exactly, Twist said, nodding to Mira. Mira sighed. All right, dear. She let go of his arm, taking her murmuring concern with her. Twist moved closer to the massive machine and then selected a large gear that was in easy reach. He lifted his hand and closed his eyes, laying his palm against the metal, and his sight billowed into the huge clockwork expanse like smoke. The mechanism was far more complex than he imagined. Despite its size, the clockwork within was just as fine as that of a pocket watch, but as numerous and interconnected as the intertwined plants in the wildest jungle. Twist waited patiently as his mind expanded to take in the enormous machine and all of its intricate details. Each time he thought he found an end to one part of the mechanism, he found another connection leading back through more confusing paths. Before long, his attention began to feel fatigued, lost in the vast, untamed clockwork, and yet still he couldn't grasp an overall picture of the workings of the machine. Twist instantly realized that this had never happened to him before. His sight was moving and collecting information as swiftly as it ever did, but he had never tried to tackle a device as large or complex as this one. Nothing like the behemoth under his touch had ever been built before. Twist continued to follow gear after gear, knowing that no matter what it looked like, the machine was not infinite. He would surely find the end of it soon enough. He couldn't possibly fathom how his father had ever imagined to build something this incredible, but then again, he had very little attention left to spare on such thoughts. Twist's awareness continued to grow and stretch until he began to fear that this machine might actually be beyond his ability to comprehend. He found himself retracing paths now, finding some finding that some connections were dual purpose. Nearly quite literally at his wits' end, Twist suddenly found the border wall. Barely having enough space inside his own head to hold all of the information at once, Twist let out a heavy breath, watching as his mind's eye began to lay it all out for him to see clearly. Now he began to understand, rather obscurely, how and why each piece mattered to the whole. He still couldn't fully comprehend exactly how the machine affected time itself, but he could at least understand how everything worked together. He found a number of tiny misalignments within the workings, but the machine currently shut off, he couldn't tell if any of them needed repair or not. Clearly, the most important parts of the machine were the hourglasses at the front. Most of the inner workings were meant to spin them along all sorts of hidden axes, while one particular part moved across their faces. Twist turned his attention to this curious part and found that the movable piece, which was held carefully by heavy, powerful stream-driven mechanical arms, seemed to be a little more than a complexly jointed, sphere-shaped box with nothing mechanical within it at all. Twist pushed his sight into the tiny, intricate seams that held the box closed, and then past and into the box itself. Twist's inner vision suddenly began to vanish as he tried to perceive the contents of the box. Although he still could see nothing at all inside the box, his attention seemed inextricably drawn into it. Startled by this strange sensation, Twist tried to turn his attention away to the clockwork once again. To his sudden terror, Twist found that he couldn't. The emptiness inside the box began to pull more and more of his attention inside, where it seemed to vanish entirely into empty darkness. Twist tried to open his eyes, to pull his hand away from the machine, but even his sense of the world outside of his own mind was beginning to vanish now. His body no longer responded at all, and still his full attention was being consumed by the nothing inside the box. All at once, the emptiness in the clockwork vanished entirely from his sight, replaced by a cool white fog. Twist's other senses returned instantly, as he felt himself collapse to the ground, his stomach turning violently, his heart racing, his breath choked, and his head pounding. He felt Jonas catch him and hold him upright, the two of them now kneeling before each other. "What the hell?" Jonas asked, his fear and confusion plain as day. Suddenly aware that the contents of his stomach wanted out of him as quickly as possible, Twist did his utmost to hold himself as still as he could. He refrained from responding, begging his stomach to calm and refusing outright to let it do what it meant to do. This effort proved too great, the pain in Twist's head blinding him to everything else in the world. Helplessly, Twist's awareness slipped into blackness once again. And that is where we're going to leave our story. I want to thank you all for joining this reading stream once again. Looking at the calendar, we should have reading stream next Sunday, September 7th, same time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time Zone. I do hope that you all enjoy the story as well as the reading of the story, and with most likely luck and no shenanigans happen, we will have a computer for the reading stream next Sunday. Erudite said, "Yep, I thought that's how the chapter ended. Now everyone has to come back next time." Well, I certainly will be here next time because I'm very invested in the story and the series. And for those who may not know, Erudite is the actual author of this series. So they know everything that's going to happen. I do not. But again, thank you all for joining. I hope that you enjoyed this stream, and we will be back next Sunday unless something comes up that prevents me from doing the reading stream. And with that, I'm off. Take care, have a wonderful day, stay safe, and see you next time.